online. What I'm going to do today is talk about how I use some of the tools in the cloud. And what I mean by in the cloud is on the internet. And this isn't going to be about how to find records, but how to keep track of your genealogical research using all of those tools. So the topics today, I will always cover a little bit of methodology before I launch into the tools so that we have kind of a common background so that I can talk about some of these processes when I'm doing it. So I'm going to talk briefly about a little bit about the difference in family history versus genealogy. A lot of us do both, but some people are only interested in one or the other, and some of these tools are good for just one, and maybe some of them are good for just the other. So I'll mention that. So as you're learning to do your genealogy, I want you to learn to develop a process. And I will talk a little bit about what a process is for both a genealogy and both a family historian, and then how to work all those steps so that you can record what you're doing and repeat what you're doing. And then we're going to talk about the cloud tools in order to do some of this recording. So family history usually is personal information. It's recording oral or photographic information, so photographs, oral stories. Some of the things that you'll ask a relative is where did the ancestors live, what job did they have, where did they go to school, what houses did they live in, who's in this picture or scrapbook, or tell me about a family story or a legend that you remember being told as you were growing up. This is perfect for talking to relatives at Thanksgiving and Christmas. If you can, and I'm going to show you one way to do that, or talk to you about one way to do that later in the lecture, grab those stories as you can, because you may not have time to do genealogy now, but you'll have those family history stories for later when you do. Genealogical research is trying to trace those family lineages in order to obtain relationship information. And we collect documents about the ancestors, mostly names, dates, places. We analyze any of the evidence to kind of prove an answer to a question. You're fortunate if you can find a document that clearly says this person is the father of this person. But you are not going to find that on some of our early American ancestors. It just, or any ancestor for that matter, all over the world. You're going to get to a point where records don't prove specifically. And so we'll have to analyze the evidence to kind of give a preponderance of evidence to say there isn't anything that says this is not true, and everything kind of leans toward that being true. And then genealogical research usually produces charts to show the relationships. So my background is from software engineering, and so I'm sort of an engineer as well as a software person doing genealogy, and so I like to be able to repeat what I'm doing. With family history, when I'm trying to be the historian, I'm usually doing an oral interview with questions. If I can, and I know that I'm going to talk to somebody that I'm not going to ever get a chance to see again, or maybe infrequently, I'll try to prepare those questions ahead of time. If you're writing to them or sending email to them, you might even write up a questionnaire and send them the questions in the email for them to answer, or in mail for them to answer. One of the techniques I use, especially for people that don't like to get on the internet, is to write a question and leave a space for them to fill in the answer, and then write another question, let them fill in the answer. And don't try to correct names, dates, and places as your interviewing is happening unless there's just something that's not totally clear. Let people continue to talk. We want to document those sessions. Be sure and write down who, what, when, why, and where. Who conducted the interview? Did you do that? What did you talk about? When did you do this interview? The exact date, the place, and who you were talking to. Collect as many photographs, mementos, and paper records while you have somebody around. And even though you personally may not choose to use this information for genealogical research, others might. So that's the reason for putting the names, the dates, the places, and where. So it's so that it gets documented for the future. Somebody 50 years from now can see this interview that, if you transcribed an interview, that would have this for information. This will provide sound documentation that you'll be leaving a legacy for future generations. So this comes from engineering and from project manager. I'm a certified project manager also. So these steps are repeatable. And one of the simple methods for doing that, and I'll talk a little bit here about a comprehensive method, the simple method is answer those questions: who, where, when, why, how. So what? Answer the question, where was my grandfather born? Where and when would there be evidence to answer these questions? Figure out what kind of records there would have to be. Who has those records? Why were those records created? And the reason you ask why is because sometimes records were created for another purpose, and it may not record the information accurately. For instance, a death certificate might have somebody's birth information, but it was given by a witness at his death, and it would be not as accurate as a record that would have been recorded at the birth. So why were the records also created? Now, if you're interested in this more in a methodology, go Google Genealogical Proof Standard. This is the comprehensive method used by professionals. It informs all these steps that I've listed here: exhaustive research of records, complete citations, full analysis and correlation of information, resolution of all conflicts, soundly reasoned conclusion, and written up. So that's the Genealogical Proof Standard. But don't necessarily hold yourself to say, I'm going to do that completely. If you're just getting started, start with that simple method of who, what, when, why, and where. And one of the ways I remember it is date backwards, ETAD. I do the evaluate and locate, transcribe anything that I need to transcribe. I take the time to do the analysis, look at it, what's in this document, what's kind of implied by the document, and then I think about what it is I'm going to do next. I design the next tasks. So evaluating means take analysis time. What did you accomplish? So you can mark off some to-do items, and I'm going to show you a tool here to do that. File your copies, notes, analysis, and organize files on your computer. This is one of the big problems I've got right now. I've got to go through and reorganize everything that's on my computer. Don't get hung up on a particular way of doing it, but just do it, and then every once in a while you'll have to stop and reorganize. That's just the nature of the way we develop some of our file systems. Decide what needs to happen next in your research, or decide what you need to start with. And then you want to record those to-dos for the next time. So here's a few of the artifacts of each step. I believe they're going to put this PowerPoint out where you can get it as a handout. So you want to evaluate and locate. Well, that's usually library catalog entries. It's usually online sources. Searches and emails from cousins or research logs. That's all these evaluate and locate records. Transcribe is transcribing of your research notes, any kind of sources that are in old handwriting. You may want to want to record them and transcribe them as much as you can. One of the reasons is when you're looking at a record, a lot of times you can page forward or backward in, like for courthouse minutes, for instance, and find another word that is similar in handwriting and figure out what that letter is while you're there and have the record. But if you just copy that page, you might not be able to figure out what the letter is from that one entry. So you want to, write down the pages, numbers, and all that. So these are all the transcribes steps: scans, photographs, notes. The analysis, usually I have a Word document or a spreadsheet, or sometimes the genealogical reports out of programs like Family Tree Maker or the Master Genealogist or Legacy. And then you want to design next steps. and that's what your research to be done is. Notes on what to be done next on your research, and that's what we're going to look at first as far as our online tool. First, if you're looking for any sources of online, how to find books online, number one is WorldCat, and that's one of our topics that we're going to talk about today. Library of Congress and Google Books. Those three are the highest used resources for genealogists to find books. So first I'm going to talk about worldcat.org. If you remember going to a library and having to find a reference librarian to borrow a book from interlibrary loan, they were getting onto OCLC, which is the major catalog that holds entries for all the libraries. What WorldCat is an interface into that resource that they had. And so it is the largest network of library catalogs and all the related services. You will be astounded at the libraries that are on here, including libraries at elementary schools. You just won't believe the number of libraries that are networked in on WorldCat. Since most of the people use the web first rather than go physically into a library, they decided to make this interface so that you can get to stuff for books, music, CDs, videos that libraries hold. This is a wonderful tool, and we're going to spend at least about half the time on talking about this one tool because it's so important. Primarily this is going to be for genealogy research, but family historians sometimes will find other oral interviews on these archives and libraries and stuff. So don't rule out looking at this even if you're not interested in building a family tree as such, or if you're interested in finding oral history. So this one library catalog to search, and just to name a few of the major libraries that are on here. Library of Congress is on here. The Family History Library in Salt Lake City, which is the library that Family Search is attached to, FamilySearch.org. The Tennessee State Library and Archives, the Texas State Library and Archives. I bet in almost every state library and archives is on here. Allen County Public Library, which is one of the major resources for genealogists. If you're not aware, Allen County Public Library is in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They set up their goal to record, acquire copies of every genealogical periodical and historical periodical, and they index them, and that index is known as Percy. So Allen County Public Library is one of the major genealogical libraries in the United States, and so they are also on this library catalog. So just to be able to go and search in one place to find a potential book, this worldcat.org is just invaluable. One of the ways we do genealogical research, searching on a library catalog, is to search by locality, search by record type. So I can do a search by tax list, for instance. You can, when I show you here in a minute, we can record searches to be repeated. One of the beautiful things about the internet is you can find all kinds of things. One of the bad things is it changes constantly. So we want to be able to take the same searches that we did today and be able to repeat them again 3 months from now or 6 months from now. And we also want to be able to generate bibliographies, and then also an easy way to do spreadsheets to track our progress. I might print off a spreadsheet to take with me to a library and actually make notes on the spreadsheet if I don't take an iPad with me to actually do some of the recording online while I'm working on it. And another way we want to use these WorldCat is by working together as a team, or maybe a distant cousin could also want to work on the same family that you're working on, and you want to be able to share how what you're actually working on. So if you go to worldcat.org, you can search by locality, and you just plug in Sabine County, Texas, for instance, was this one that I captured, and it brings up all the books in kind of a list here. We can also search by record type, like I said, Texas tax lists, And so it shows all the books or periodicals or whatever's in the library catalog that would come up. Some libraries have microfilm cataloged as well as books. Oops, did I skip one? Back here. My mouse is pretty sensitive. It keeps going forward pretty quick here. When these searches come back, you can enter your location, and it will try to find libraries as close to you as possible. So even though I did a search and ended up with Johnson County, North Carolina marriage records, I might be able to find that in a library close to me, rather than having to go to North Carolina in order to do that. So one of the ways you can use it is to put your location in here. If you scroll down to the bottom of that list that you just had up there, it's going to show you something called user lists. That book, Johnson County, North Carolina Marriage Records, is on somebody's research list, and this one happens to be me, Renfro and Van Pelt Family Research, so I've got it on that list. I've also got it on my list to pull when I'm in Dallas. And if you go to a repository frequently, you can build a list of things to do when you get ready to go there. So like the 2 or 3 trips a year that I make back to Dallas, I can have my research list already built up and ready to go when I get ready to do there. Now you can do all of that without creating an account on WorldCat.org. But one reason that, or there's several reasons here to create them, and when I show you these tools, I think you're going to want to go create an account at WorldCat.org. You can record your preferred repositories rather than having to type it in on that line every time. You can save your searches. Come right back, click on the Save Search, and do that same search over and over and over again. You can create research lists, and that list that I showed at the bottom down there is a research list. I can take those research lists and I can export them in a common delimited file, bring them into Excel, take that list with me somewhere and write notes in the columns, use it for anything that I want to do. I can watch other people's research lists. So you can search those research lists and find other people and watch their research lists. So maybe you find a really active researcher that you want to follow what they're researching. So when you go to WorldCat, there is a bar across here at the top. You've got Home and My WorldCat and Search, and that's the 3 primary tabs up here. If you put your cursor over My WorldCat, you're going to see all of the choices, and you can go individually to lists or your reviews. You can actually review a book also. So if you find a book helpful, or if you find something missing. For example, there is one of the books that I use in my Texas research having to do with scholastic tax records. And one version of the book doesn't have 4 counties. The second version has these other 4 counties in it. So one of the things I should do is go here to review that book, find the version 1 and version 2, and make a note. So that if somebody comes up with version 1, I'll say, hey, you need to find version 2 of this book, because there's more information in version 2. You can add tags, and tags are search keys so that you can find books. But instead of going to each one of these things individually, if you'll just click that My WorldCat tab, just click on that, and you bring up what is known as a dashboard. Notice that in this little section here, these are called widgets by computer people. This widget has a little bit of the favorite libraries that I have. It shows 1 or 2. It has my lists, and it shows a couple of the lists. It shows other lists that I might be watching, which I didn't have at the time that I took the screen capture. It has some of the saved searches. I did a lecture last year on Republic of Texas sources, and so here was the list that I used to generate that, any of my reviews. So it's just a little bit of each one of those things that were up in that My WorldCat. if you continue to scroll down that page that you were on, the bottom of the dashboard, see here are the rest of the list shown. Here are my saved searches and also the reviews. It also gives you a place to put your interest. And those of us doing genealogy research that are using WorldCat, we've been putting our surnames in there. So if you got on WorldCat and I did a search by Purdue as a family name, it's going to bring me up in that search. And I've got tags that I'm interested in Alabama and Texas. So it gives you a way of saying what your genealogy research is doing. And other academics. I mean, obviously people are using WorldCat.org not just for genealogy research. Now, once you got a search that you have done, if you find you have something like this where we have over 1,000 records returned, we can narrow the search over here. And so there will be check boxes, and I can then check and say, oh, I only want to see articles, or I only want to hear audiobooks, or I want books that are ebooks. So you can find copies of these books online. A lot of books have been scanned and put online at archive.org, at the Google Books, and then there is the Brigham Young Library has been digitizing a lot of the family history books that are owned by the Family History Library in Salt Lake. So you might want to find if it's online as an ebook. Now, once I've done this search, there is a button here, and I'm losing it here. Oh, I forgot where. Here it is. After you've done the search, right here where there's a button, and then you can click on this button and do the save search. And so here's the button, and it will pop up this box, and I can name the search, and I can say, oh, this is a search for Texas tax records. I can add a description, a little bit more to the description if this is not enough. And I can make my searches private, or I can make them public so people can see them. And this is a way of sharing them with other people, your other research team, or keeping them private for yourself. When we click on this where it says Favorite Libraries, it lists my favorite libraries. Now, one of the reasons for doing the favorite libraries, I think I showed you earlier and I'll show you again here, is that when I find a book, it's going to tell me that it's at my favorite libraries ahead of the other libraries. And so it gives me a way of indicating what my favorite libraries are and which ones I'm more likely to be doing some research in. And it's just going to move the search results so that I get those up higher. Also up at the top of the website is Home and Search. When you click on Search there, you have several tabs. You can search for libraries, you can search for other contacts, lists, and the library items. If I type in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is where I'm currently living, I ended up with this huge long list of libraries. I was just amazed. I knew that a lot of the libraries was on, but I really didn't think about elementary schools, high schools, anybody that has a card catalog that's part of that national network of sharing of the card catalogs are on worldcat.org. So you can, you have a student, if you have a daughter or a granddaughter and they're working on a research paper, they can use worldcat.org real easy. They can do their search at home, then go to the library in their high school and pull their books. So you just have to click on this little button over here at the right and say add that as my favorite, and it'll make that search come up to the top of the list. So here's an example of that. I did the history and tax records of Sabine County. When I found it, it shows me that it's in the Dallas Public Library, but it's also in the Knox County Public Library. Now, physically, Knox County is closer. It's only 159 miles away, whereas Dallas is 655 miles away. But I make fairly frequent research trips back to use the Dallas Public Library. It's one of the top 10 genealogy libraries. So if you've never been to the top floor of the Dallas Public Library, I'm going to give it a plug now. It is definitely one of the libraries that you want to go visit for genealogy. So now we can also create our own lists. And the reason for doing that, as I said, is so we can group items in a category. It helps you to track your research, and it gives you a starting point for doing this repeatable research over and over and over. Then I also can take these lists and share them with friends, colleagues, or the public. In my case, where I was doing that Republic of Texas lecture, I was able to say, hey, go to worldcat.org, search for Republic of Texas research, and you'll see my list. And so they were able to get to my complete bibliography online. Besides seeing it printed, it makes it a lot more useful when you can see it online. So if we go off to lists and it shows my list here, there's a little button that says Create. And we just want to click on Create to create a brand new list. It pops up a dialog box like this, and you type in the name of the list and any kind of description. And do you want to make it public or do you want to make it private? If you make it public, you can send a message then to your friends inviting them to come view your list, which will call attention to your list. And then you want to save it. And then it will be added to your main dashboard, and you can see this. At any time, if you have it private, so now I've got this Republic of Texas bibliography, this list, this research list, happens to be private right now. If I want to make it public, I just click on it and make it public. That way it can be available for a few days after a lecture, but then maybe while I'm working on stuff, I want to make it private. If I want to display a list, back up here for just a second, I just click on the list name. As you can see there, it's underlined, and so therefore it's a hot link, HTML link, and so then I can bring up this list, and it will put the name of the list at the top, and then show me all of the items on the list. And see here, you can change your settings, you can share your list with somebody, you can export it to CSV. And if you're not familiar with that, CSV means a common delimited file. Excel and Word and other things can take that common delimited file and make a spreadsheet out of it, which makes it easier to print as a kind of a gridded worksheet so you can take it with you. I can delete the list, I can print the list. But I can look at it as details and notes view, which is the way it comes up. It's going to show any notes that I have as well as the details of each one of the entries. I can look at only the covers, so I can see what the covers look like. That's not real useful for me in genealogy because the covers usually don't tell me a whole lot, but maybe it would be for somebody doing research in high school. And then there's a citations view. And this is wonderful, so we don't have to invent our own citations and figure out all those rules. So here's what the detail list looks like. After I've searched and I've clicked on this and I can see more details about this one book, if I haven't come from a list, if I've done it from a search, I can add it to a list. I can add tags, so I can add other research tags. I can write a review for this book. Once I click on that Add List, it brings up this dialog box, lets me choose any list that I have or create a new one. So you don't have to have remembered to create your list first. When I hover over this Choose a List, it shows me the whole list. You don't even have to hit the pull down. It starts doing that, and you can click on one. Now I'll go back up to that search at the top of the page, and I showed you before there were library items, but there's also lists. You can click on that tab for list and search other people's lists. Now you're going to get lists. Now I just typed in the word Texas, which is probably way too generic, but here's somebody's research list on higher education that's held by Texas A&M. Here's one on Texas architecture. But the fourth one down here looks pretty interesting. It's somebody's Tennessee and Texas genealogy research. So you might want to say Texas genealogy, and it would have probably brought that one up without some of these other choices. So it's a way of discovering who else is doing research and some of the things they have found. Sometimes searching card catalogs is like brainstorming every little thing so that you can figure out how to search something. Can I use the word family historian versus genealogy and get different results? Now, if I want to take this list and put it out in this common delimited form, I can click on that export and then go over and open up your Excel or whatever spreadsheet that you have and just create a new blank spreadsheet. Don't try to read that file. Go over, there is a tab called Data. Click on Data and then you say Import External Data, and then it'll give you the choice of is it a common delimited file, or is it delimited by another character like tilde or comma or colon. By saying comma, it automatically creates all of these columns for you. So see, it brings up the library number, that's the catalog number that's known all over the United States with that, the title, the author, and it's really nice. It actually gives you a column here to do your notes in also, and the date that it was added to my list. When I want to export the citations, if I go to that citation view, especially for kids in, or college kids or high school kids, you actually can change several different types of citation styles, and you can export it in several different formats. So as an example here, I clicked on that citations view. Here's all my citations. Nice bibliography citations, and I can pick rich text format, which would be one that can go into like Microsoft Word, or I can go into some of the software that's also used. EndNote is a software that you can use to collect a lot of endnotes and research. So these are nice. I don't have to sit there in my genealogy program and figure out how to cite this source. Here is a standard format to cite the source. So in summary, on WorldCat, and I'm going to cover a couple of other tools also, we use it to track research lists by topic, by repository. I use it to track research so that I can do it over and over and over. I use it to share sources with other people, and I use it to collaborate on research, do the citations, export the list so I can take it to the library. It's one of my invaluable tools. I am so glad I found that the way of keeping an account and doing all the little features that WorldCat offers. Are there any questions about WorldCat? Okay. All right, damn, I thought I had. I was swapping to the, here we go. Just take it a minute. Okay, well, we're going to launch off into other tools that are in the cloud. Now, these three that I'm covering today are just a few. I mean, there are lots of tools, but these are my favorite tools. Some of you may be familiar with Evernote but never have figured out or don't use it for genealogy, and I'll show you why you want to use it for genealogy. Evernote.com, and there is a free version of it too, so don't think you have to pay money for it. There just limits a few things. I can record and archive just about anything I want to do and access it from everywhere. And when I say access it from everywhere, it is available on the web. I can keep a copy offline on my laptop. I can access it from my iPhone, from an Android phone, from an iPad, Android pads. It is just incredible. I can get to all this information because it's online and it's at their website, and you can retrieve it in a relatively short period of time. I can even email myself documents to my Evernote account. So sometimes I can't directly get it to Evernote, but yet I can email it to myself and then turn right around and take that document and email it to Evernote. What I use it for: I keep pictures. I also keep recipes, notes, PDF files. When we bring something into our house that has a manual, and if we can find a PDF of that manual, I put it up on Evernote. One of the beauties of Evernote, not only is it available everywhere on any of these devices, it's automatically synced. So within a few minutes of you putting it in Evernote on my Apple laptop, I can go pick up my iPad and find it there. It's incredible how fast it actually gets moved up to the cloud and then makes it accessible from everything else. PDF files, the Adobe PDF format, a lot of times the scan programs will generate PDF files, or you can do PDF out of Word and some of the other things. When you put PDF up there, it actually can search inside of that PDF file. You can store audio recordings. I use it for embroidery instructions. It has got all my thread colors and stuff on it. So there is just a wealth of ways you can use Evernote. One of the guys I talked to keeps all of his kids' papers from school scanned, and their photos and their cards, and so now he's got like 4 or 5 years worth of their stuff that he wants to have later up there and archived on Evernote. The search is extremely fast, and like I said, I even can search inside of the PDF file. But more importantly, I can scan something that is typed or printed, handwritten printed, and it does optical character recognition, OCR, on those images. So I can take a picture of some typed notes. I can take a picture of a piece of paper that has some information on it and put it up on Evernote, and it will search by some of those words. And I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. For instance, the other day I was searching and I found an article in the Irish Genealogical Society site. They had a PDF of it, and I was on my laptop, so I took the PDF file that I downloaded and drag and dropped it right into my Evernote, and it puts it in here first with no category, with no title, and with no category. So you can categorize things if you'd like to find things that way, but it does an excellent job of finding documents by the words inside of them as well as by the titles. So categorizing them, that's kind of up to you whether you want to have separate folders for everything or not in those categories. This document is an image. I took it on my iPhone, and if you're not familiar, the button down on the bottom of your iPhone is called the home button, and your button on the upper right hand side up at the top, if you press both the home button and that upper button on the upper right hand side, the power button, at the same time, your screen will flash. And what it's done is take a copy of your screen and put it on your camera roll. Then I email it to myself at my Evernote account, And here was an image I took off of my iPhone. And I did a search and found by Steele. I just did a search on a surname, and here it actually found that document by the surname that was mentioned in the image. So see, I didn't have to transcribe it. Here's an image, and Evernote was able to search it, which is kind of exciting. It means you can go to a family history center or a library and take photos of things with your camera. You don't necessarily have to print them or Xerox copy them and then come home and scan them. You can just take a photo of it with your iPhone and email it into your Evernote account, and there it is. This one, I took a picture of a piece of microfilm. Now, I clipped it smaller so you could get it on. I could get it onto the page here with my PowerPoint. But I did a search on Guilford County, and it found it because it found it just from the picture that it was on. When I did the search, it made the rest of this gray, so they're not that gray. But anyway, so I'm at the Family History Center. I'm looking at a piece of microfilm. I take a photo of the first part of the microfilm, so I'll have a record of what it is, and then I might take pictures of 2 or 3 pages that I need out of it, and it goes, and I email them up to my Evernote account. So there they are. Now, there is a premium version of Evernote, and it's only $45 a year or $5 a month. And the reason is there's a limit to upload for only 60 megabytes a month, which I don't usually hit very much more than that unless I'm doing a lot of genealogy research. With premium, I can upload a gigabyte a month. You don't really have a limit on the amount of storage up there, even on your free account. The searching within PDFs is for the premium account only. And if I change a note that's up there and I want to go back a version, the premium account allows me to go back a version. The keeping an offline notebook on my iPad or my iPhone is only available on the premium version. So you go take a look at both of them, but it is very useful to have this free account. You don't necessarily have to go premium on everything. But I did want to make you aware that there were a few of the features I talked about that are in the premium only. There are add-on applications to Evernote, and a couple of them are like Web Clipper allows me to clip only a certain part of the web page that I have. Excuse me for a minute. It's a plug-in to a web browser, and so I don't have to then take something that's on my web browser, print it, or do a screen capture. I can then just click this button and the web clipper will automatically put it in Evernote. I can scan directly to Evernote through one of their add-ons, and I can print directly to Evernote from some of the add-ons. One of the ways when it installs on an Apple Mac, it will add the option so that when you go to print, just like you select a printer, I have an option of print to Evernote. I did not see it on the PC version of that, but there may be another add-on or something, so I didn't go research that. So the genealogist secrets of Evernote is if I'm sitting at a table at Thanksgiving and I have a relative that starts telling a story about when they're in school or when they're growing up, I carry my iPhone just about everywhere these days, and I very quietly pick up my iPhone and open it up and bring up Evernote, and there's just one button there, and I start an audio recording. And it lets you record the story without it being obvious, because if you set a tape recorder down in front of somebody, a lot of times they just freeze up and they don't finish the rest of the story. And this is a way of capturing some of that information for a family historian. It doesn't have a limit on the size of the audio recordings. I've used it to record conference calls that I had, and I've used it to record other things that were like 30 minutes or an hour long, and I've never had a problem with it recording and it goes to the cloud, and you can turn right around immediately and have access to it. If you're a premium owner, premium account owner, I can take one of those. I can create a folder of documents and share them with another person. 3 years ago, I had to move from Dallas to here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and my brother was down in Dallas doing work on the house, and one of the ways we shared receipts back and forth was to have that shared document folder. And it was private. Only the two of us could get to that shared document folder, but it's a way of doing that, just kind of like if you're familiar with Dropbox having shared folders, you also can do that. Just remember to get your stories, get the notes, anything, capture it first, throw it into Evernote, come back later and make it pretty, or edit the audio into something that's more usable later on. But get it captured. That's our primary goal at this point. It's Evernote.com is secure and accessible just about everywhere, every device. Searching's fast, includes PDF, and they take care of the backups. You don't have to worry about backing it up. I don't have to tell it to do it. Their servers do all of that, and I have had no problems with any of the notes disappearing, none of my information, so it's kind of like capture it and forget it. It's there. Now, the final tool that I'm going to cover in the cloud is protopage.com. Protopage is a way of creating your own personalized web page for free. It doesn't assign a domain name, so it's a long path, but you can keep some or all of your pages private. You can expose some of them. The address of those pages will be protopage.com/ and then the name you use. It doesn't have to be your name. It can be your handle or whatever you're using there. What's on the proto page can be little blocks of information, and the text are called widgets because they can be rearranged. So here is my proto page, and I've got 4 little widgets. You can pick other things, so like Dick Eastman's online newsletter, and the Genealogy podcast guys have their podcast on there, so you can put different things on your proto page. And it's also a way of tracking some of your to-do. Here I have my private portion of my proto page, and I put some of my research to do on Red River County here. So this is another way I have done some research to-dos. The tabs are different desktops, so I can actually have multiple desktops in my account. And as you notice, there are some cute things here, like I can see my Dilbert Daily Strip, some comics. I can have CNN top stories. I can have weather. So you can have a general desktop for doing all kinds of things like that. Whoops. The other one that you can do on a proto page is sticky notes. And so you can have sticky notes. You can bring your calendar up, or you can write a sticky note to yourself, and it'll be there on your proto page to pick up. When you create a proto page, you mark it whether or not it's private or public. You choose a password for it. You enter your name and the country and zip code. So they're just recording a little bit of information so that they know who's using it, and just invent some name so that it's unique. It'll come back and tell you if it's not unique. This is free. There is no charge for proto page, and I can edit anything by clicking on Edit. This was an edit in progress. It shows that, and I can type, and here's my to-do list, right, for the copy of the death certificate from Illinois. You can drag and drop these tiles anywhere on the page. It makes it real easy to rearrange. You don't have to know HTML. These are wonderful ways of creating a web page for people that do not know how to bring up a web page another way. One of the ones I want to call your attention to is protopage.com Relatively Curious. This is Tammy Glatz's proto page. It has pointers to research sites all over the web. It's not as comprehensive as like Cindy'sList.com, but it is a really neat way of finding some information for genealogy, and she has a lot of things out there. You can take a look at how she's used it. Do we have any questions? Because we're getting close to the end here. So all three of these cloud tools take away your backup chores, make sharing easier. It has some privacy if you need them, makes them accessible on both small and large platforms. So if I all of a sudden find I'm stranded in a town and I have 3 extra hours, I can get to a library. I've got my iPhone. I can bring up my research list. I know exactly what I want to do. Excuse me. Any other questions? Finally, I want to leave this thought with you, that tools make it easier to do the genealogical process we talked about in the front, but they don't make up for lack of documentation or bad analysis. So we want to take that time to do our analysis and document. And these tools that I showed you, especially WorldCat.org, helps you do that documentation and carry it forward. I want you to go out and try these. My email address is there, jjs@pioneerinfoservices.com. If you have questions later and want to contact me, you're welcome to do that.